I am so glad that you wrote this book, because I'm one of those guys that watches the news, and I have been fuming for years over the coverage that John McCain gets. I've been watching people who I thought had liberal or progressive bona fides on the air, singing the praises of this man over and over and over again. And I got to tell you, Paul, I never got it. I never saw that kind of John McCain. I mean, when I was president of the Screen Actors Guild, I had some dealings with John McCain, and I found him to be kind of, frankly, a miserable human being. But that was the sense that I got. I didn't find him particularly pleasant. I didn't find him great to deal with, and I'm not exactly sure how this myth was created. What was the start of the myth of McCain?
Well, you can really trace it back to the time when he got caught up in the Keating 5 scandal, which was in the late 1980s. That really seems to be the turning point where he figured out how he needed to change his image in the press. For those people who don't remember, in Keating 5, this was related to the savings and loan scandal. There was a man named Charles Keating with whom John McCain was very close, who had given him lots of money, who had flown McCain and his family down to his vacation home in the Bahamas many times. And Keating urged a group of 5 senators, of whom McCain was one, to try to intervene with federal regulators to get them to back off of their investigation into him. Keating's SNL ended up being the single largest offender in the savings and loan crisis, which cost the American taxpayer a few $100 billion. But after that scandal, that's really when McCain seems to have started to put more effort into wooing the national press corps. And it's interesting that you say that you found him not to be such a friendly guy, while that would seem to be a real contrast with the way that so many national reporters have been charmed by him. But there's another group of people who have the same feeling that you do, and that's the reporters in Arizona. If you look at the way their relationship with him has evolved, he has a very contentious kind of almost hostile relationship with the press in Arizona. And it really stems from the fact that their coverage of him has kind of been warts and all. They've talked about the good parts of his personality and his history, and also the bad parts.
Right.
And he's never been very friendly with them. In 2000, he even wouldn't let the reporter from the Arizona Republic, the largest newspaper in his home state, he wouldn't let her have a seat on the Straight Talk Express. So while McCain was, partying it up with the Washington reporters on the bus, she was following along in a rental car. But you see the exact opposite with the Washington-based media. They think that he's the most charming guy in the world. And I think McCain can be extraordinarily charming when he wants to. And what he really figured out and applied with his relationship with the national press is that the ordinary relationship between politicians and reporters is pretty dysfunctional. There's a kind of vicious cycle that goes on where the politician is always being very careful and measured. They don't want to say anything that's going to get them in trouble, and so they end up just kind of repeating their talking points over and over, and are very reluctant to open up, and that drives reporters crazy. And so they end up always sort of waiting for the gaffe. McCain figured out that he could kind of turn that upside down, and so he would just invite them into his office or onto his campaign bus and never go off the record, talk for hours and hours, tell stories in which he was not the hero, self-deprecating stories, because he realized that when he did that, the reaction wouldn't be, oh, well, I'm going to put that in the next article I write. The reaction would be, what a great guy. He's so much different from other politicians. And it created this kind of glow that really gave him this sort of reservoir of goodwill that he could draw on again and again.
So is it the personal relationship? I mean, did he set out to create a personal relationship with the Washington press corps? Because, I mean, it seems to me, and yes, your book is very clear about the fact that the love affair does not seem to extend to the Arizona reporters. So, it seems like it's a very deliberate move on his part to cultivate this relationship so that it's there for him when he needs it.
Yeah, it really was, and that's an important thing, I think, for people to understand, is it didn't just happen by accident. It's a strategy. I don't think that there's any politician who understands reporters better than John McCain does. one of the things that he knows is that if he treats them with respect and treats them as though he thinks that what they do is really valuable, after a while they end up feeling like almost as though he is their partner, as opposed to their adversary. I mean, I've had reporters say to me, well, McCain just makes it really easy to write our stories. He gives us good copy. He knows, what we need and what we don't need and what we like and what we don't like, and it just makes our job easier. And that is, you can't overestimate how important that is to them. And so, a lot of it is doing things like, there was this event where he brought a bunch of national reporters out to his ranch in Sedona. And, if you go to YouTube and you search on Meghan McCain, that's his daughter, you can see a video that she did of it. And you see all these national reporters who are there kind of carousing on his ranch, and he's serving up the ribs from the barbecue, and they're all just having a great time. And he does things like that in the knowledge that that when he turns on the charm, it will help win them over. And then later on, when he needs to kind of call on that goodwill, he can. So that when he says something that would get other politicians in trouble, they're not going to leap on it. They're going to say, well, that's McCain. We know that he's a good guy, or we know that he's smart and he doesn't believe this thing that he said. So they end up assuming the best about him, whereas with other politicians, they end up assuming the worst.